Welcome, everyone, and this is episode number 7, where I interview the boys from Kipsy.com. Tyler and Hunter, the CEO and CTO of Kipsy, which is an AI-driven sales assistant and conversation intelligence tool. This podcast is sponsored by the GTM AI Academy, your go-to resource for learning how to leverage AI in go-to-market teams and individual roles. You can find this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, and more. Friends, it is another episode of GTM AI Podcast, and I have with me the boys from Kipsy.com. And I have Tyler and Hunter. I met with Tyler a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah, pretty recently.
And love we had to show me. And sadly, I had bought a tool before I knew he existed, or else I would have changed my mind on tools. But it was an awesome conversation. After we talked, I told him I had to have him on the show. And then Hunter, you came along with us, so I'm so glad to have you. Tyler, let's start with you first. Tell us a little bit about you, and then why you got into Kipsy, and then Hunter, same with you. We'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like Kipsy boys. I think we'll have to seal that. So yeah, we're the Kipsy boys. Kipsy is a conversational AI and meeting assistant technology for sales teams. Mm-hmm. We're doing a lot of the pretty standard stuff of, automatically joining meetings, recording, gathering transcripts, taking meeting notes. But we're really focused on just beyond that is making sure that the data from your sales meetings is getting properly extracted and then automatically uploaded into your CRM and a few other things so that you can actually tell what's going on in your sales organization in a real-time way. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more, but how I got into this, I actually used to be a director of sales engineering and for a startup, medium-sized sales team. And one of the things that I noticed was one of our biggest problems is finding that right message, right? When you're kind of a young company and trying to figure out what lands, what is the nugget of information that actually causes someone to want to have that next meeting or want to purchase your product. And it's very difficult to figure out where you fit into the marketplace. And what does that involve? That involves, us working with our marketing folks and our sales leadership and watching a ton of recordings and trying to figure out, what the hell is going on.
Right.
And after I left that company, I thought, you know what? We don't actually need to do that anymore. We have the technology out here and available to extract that data. So let's do it, basically. Why not us? And that's kind of how we ended up doing what we're doing.
Love it. Hunter, your turn. Let me hear it.
Yeah. So I'm Hunter Thompson. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Kipsy. I've been in the software industry for about a decade now. I started out in cloud network applications and then moved, towards AI. I got really inspired by a lot of the stuff that was happening there around like 2017, 2018, especially around NLP. And I pivoted my career into, deep learning and artificial intelligence. And pretty soon after doing that, Tyler was like, hey, why don't we, start discussing doing something, together, right? So we went to college together and had always, looked at doing a startup. But yeah, after I made that change, he's like, let's go do something in AI. So
cool.
So you can see who the brains of the operation is.
You're just the looks, right? I know how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. You both got the looks. So Hunter, I'm glad you're on the line because a lot of times I'm talking to founders who aren't exactly the technical brains. So it'd be nice to kind of have I may scoop into some more detailed or AI stuff because I know you know more than I do. So I'd love to pick your brain on some things. So with Kipsy, let's kind of put this in a category for the folks listening if they kind of understand. So with AI launching, we have things like Otter, Fathom, Fireflies, like all these free tools. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have Gong, Chorus, SalesLoft, Taya with Outreach. You have all these advanced enterprise type tech, right? So one's kind of the basic AI called transcript recorders. The other one's the super advanced, more heavy lifting of transcripts, that kind of stuff. Where would you put Kipsy? Like, where do you think you kind of sit in all that field of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're definitely not down by kind of the more common tools you mentioned, like Fathom and Otter AI.
Yeah.
What we find there is they have a lot of the baseline technology, which is really great for a lot of people, but they're more directed at general audiences, right? Not necessarily sales organizations. They're kind of for everyone, right? So if you're unsure what tool you should be using, chances are that's the tool you should be using. We're definitely up more with the Gong crowd, but what we're really focused on and what differentiates us from them is really two things. The technology doesn't need to be expensive anymore. It's very cheap to run. So we have a good opportunity to come in and provide, you know, a lot, if not all of the same things that they're providing at a much lower cost. So that's really interesting for a lot of organizations. And the other thing that is kind of different about us that maybe Hunter can get into a little bit is we are really taking a deeper look at all your sales conversations. And we're trying to understand, okay, across all of your meetings that are happening, all your conversations, what are the key nuggets of information? What is causing a deal to move forward? And, some more important stuff, are your reps following your sales playbook, right?
Right.
And the reps that are following the sales playbook, are those the reps that are winning? Because you also obviously want validation if your playbook is right. So that's the kind of stuff that we're focused on.
Yeah, Hunter, I'd love to hear your thoughts, like, because you probably know the tech background a little bit more. What do you think on your side?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, us versus them, you know, AI at this point is moving really quickly. These larger enterprise-focused startups are not startups, companies are not going to move as quickly as these startups are. There's a lot of research coming out, and we're constantly, reading those papers, keeping up to date. And, it's something, will be published, and within 2 weeks, we can have a proof of concept and get that thing deployed. We don't have to go through, all of these different series that other enterprises do. So we can move a bit faster. What that means is that our customers get the latest tech in their hands. Some cool paper comes out from OpenAI, or from some other, organization, and we can pull that into our own code base relatively quickly. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
So from
really good point. If I can just expand on that a little
yeah,
bit. And because AI is moving so fast now, and the interesting thing is AI is now being used to develop more AI
right.
as kind of developer assistant. So things are just moving faster, and it kind of feels like we're approaching light speed here. And that's one of the cool things about the situation that we're in. Because like Hunter said, we can stay right on top of it, and we're more willing, I think, to try things out. And we're okay being told that our baby's ugly, and that's not the direction we should be going in, right? But the important thing is, like, there's all this new AI tech, but actually integrating that into your sales process is, it has to be seamless, right? Because a lot of these tools are not built for salespeople or sales organizations.
Right.
They need some kind of mesh in between.
So one thing when you showed me the demo we met up before, that because I've been a long time enterprise user, like right now we use Gong. And so I know all those capabilities inside now. And I also used, before I had Gong, I used personally Fathom. So I know all the cheap, like, because I like to test AI tools. So I tested Otter, Fathom,
Mhm.
Fireflies, and a lot of them, like you said, are pretty basic. What I liked about yours is that, strangely enough, with some tools, which I won't name any names, but you don't get that insight analytics on actual conversations across the holistic view of the company. You get it on the call, but like a lot of the tools, I can't go in and say, tell me the patterns of objections that's happened across the entire org, which is crazy because they have the
Right.
data. I just can't actually get that data. Instead, like a lot of these enterprise teams are focusing on like getting an email sequential tool to add to it and adding all these other
Right.
products where I'm like, you have a gold mine of data where you have already, but they're not even coming close to extrapolating all the good stuff you could. So that's one thing I liked about your guys is that you're really double diving into the value in actual conversations that you can grab besides anything else. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe Hunter, you could talk a little bit about that's something we're very focused on is you can do a whole bunch of this AI and add a whole bunch of these analytics for a single call.
yeah,
Um, but it really does get an order of magnitude more difficult when you start talking about 500 hours
yep,
of calls that you had last week.
yep,
Right. So yeah, Hunter, I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
yeah, I mean, that, to be fair, that when we started Kipsy, we were just focused on a single call. And we realized pretty quickly after deploying it that, people weren't as interested. They didn't care about the metrics from just one call. They wanted to know how everyone is doing across the
mhm,
board. And
mhm,
that's why we started looking at, how can we provide those insights to, for everyone in the company, right? And so, yeah, it is a really hard problem to solve. There is some interesting innovations that have been done. One of them is called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. So you have, all your data, all your documents, and you attach your, LLM to that. and it enables it to, look up into those documents. And that's kind of one of the key things we focused on because, it's great to have some AI tell you, hey, this is what I think, right? But I want, an AI to prove it to me. What actually happened this time in the call?
Yeah.
Can you really show, some objection or something? Where did it really happen? And so something that, we've done is we've really focused on that so that we can provide timestamps of, when things have happened. So you can really, add proof to that data that you're pulling in.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm going to dive in more to the AI side because I always ask this AI founders, are you bolting on OpenAI or is it built on your own model? What are you using?
Yeah.
We use a mix. I can go into that. Yeah. So
Yeah. You do.
of course, there is some OpenAI stuff that we do through some of it, but for us, it's more of a stopgap. We don't need, realistically, because we're focused on sales, we don't need all of the knowledge across all of the space that these AIs provide. We just need
Right.
things around sales and business and, revenue. And so right now, a lot of that stuff is just operating as a stopgap. We do have some of our own models deployed. We have a mix
Cool.
of, machine learning and AI, where we have these large, scale deep neural networks deployed. We also use classical machine learning through our product as well.
Cool. I love it. I love hearing and ask these questions because sometimes, and I don't mind if someone bolts on an AI, but obviously you guys are an AI developed product, which is a different than bolting one on to an existing product.
Yeah, we want to
So-
be an amalgamation of things, right? And so on one side, there's all these different AI companies, and things, like I said, are evolving so freaking fast with them that
Mhm.
you as an end user, you don't want to necessarily keep up and say, okay, is Anthropic with their Claude model, are they doing better now than OpenAI or Grok, or what about the Gemini model from Google? Like, which one is the
Right.
best, right? So we're on top of all that for you. You don't necessarily have to worry about which tool we're using under the hood. The answer is we're using all of them, and whichever one is performing the best at a given time, we're using that model. But then on top of that, there's, like Hunter said, there's all these approaches and techniques that aren't necessarily available off the shelf that we're deploying for our customers.
No, I love that. And I have no, just, like, I don't diss anybody who uses OpenAI or Claude. That's what they're there for. I think it's good.
Yeah.
But I'm always curious to see like what training data is trained on, whether it is more mass AI platforms or if it's like a specific subset of stuff you're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just,
to be
I'm
fair,
always curious.
with anything with an LLM, the reality is that like a small startup like ours is not going to have, the hundreds
Yeah.
of millions of dollars
Yeah.
required to, make some
Right.
700 billion parameter model rate actually work. So, in some cases, if you're using an LLM, you do have to rely on those to get good responses and good conversational AI. But, you don't necessarily need them throughout the entirety of your product. And also there are data security concerns with some of those, especially OpenAI, how they use it and train against it. So those are all considerations, we have to make.
Totally. And I love the call out to this. Thank you. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. We were talking about this before that we jumped on the recording, but I'd really love to talk about the broader spectrum of go-to-market companies and AI in general, whether that's in sales or leadership or whatever. I'd love to hear, Hunter. I know you kind of pointed this, Tyler, so I'm going to pick on Hunter.
Yep.
What do you see happening in AI and GTM and how things are going to be functioning over the next, let's just say year, let's just say short term year, which is like a light years in the AI world, but in a year.
It's hard to like, there's so much stuff happening in AI, like new models getting out. Like Sora blew me away. I did not think, to
Sora's
be honest,
crazy.
that Sora would be possible. I'm sure people more into it would think that, but I hadn't looked at, video generation or things like that. I've done some event-based, computer vision stuff, but completely blew me away. So I can think, of using things like that to, produce, there's a lot of, videos, marketing videos that, done even just like in the short term, just to do proof of concepts of things, right? That can help you iterate so much faster versus having to, go through and pay someone thousands of dollars to, go produce or hundreds of dollars to produce a video for you. You can now just say like, oh, let me try this thing. Let me tweak it this way. Is this, working better? Is this more what we want? And then you can go pay someone to go do it, or you can spend all the hours yourselves to go do it. So really it helps you, instead of doing kind of paper wireframes, it helps you essentially, you do it at that scale and a lot faster. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like when, I don't know if you read the thing about Tyler Perry was going to build an 800 million movie studio. And as soon as Sora came out, he's like, oh, I'm doing that anymore. It's like, it's drastically changing. I agree with you. Like I've been following AI video stuff since like the horrible Will Smith videos, that were like so bad that you're like, this is ridiculous. But it was like amazing, the quality of it. So what do you think, like, let's just talk, for example, go to market leaders. If a go to market leaders are listening, whether it's enablement, sales, CRO, whoever,
Mhm.
a lot of people are trying to figure out how in the world. I hear two questions all the time. How do I implement AI and bolt on it to my product is one way. Do I
Mhm.
build my own? Do I, use open APIs? Or, and I should say, is how do I upskill my team to use whatever tool is out there to use with AI? So from your both perspective, because you are an AI tool trying to get people to use it,
Mhm.
let's start with the process of like thinking about, should I add a tool or should I add a product to this AI base or should I not? What would you say to something like that now that you're an AI founder?
Yeah, I mean, so what I would say is, I guess the first part of that question, should I build my own? And probably not. You're going to require it, not because the models are really that hard. I'm pretty sure most people with programming experience can go down, take a paper down, and recreate the model.
Yeah.
Collecting all the training data you need is going to be just an absurdly, it's going to be a really hard task. Same thing with, and also setting up all the data centers with all the GPUs. This can be really costly. So I wouldn't build it yourself. There is some cool stuff being done with with quantization and Hugging Face, interface endpoints that you can deploy. So you can do some lightweight stuff on your own, but I would recommend against it. And I would go with, even if it's just OpenAI and using that interface directly, I would go, something with that. You can disable chat history and, tell it to not use your training, stuff as training data. So those are
Right.
all options.
Yeah, I like it. So I know that's why you brought up a good point though, is like AI uses an incredible amount of power with servers and people
Mhm.
don't ever think about that side, which is a obviously a component. So let's talk about the other side. Like if someone wants to help start using the tools, whether it's like a simple Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT tool, or like a team-based tool like yours, like what should they not do? Like what do you see works and what do you see that doesn't work? Saying, hey, AI is gonna be a magic pill, and then it's not the magic pill. So what should they do and what should they not do when looking at AI tools?
I mean, realistically, you're just gonna have to try them out and see what works for you. The biggest thing that people run into with these AI is they believe that they're always right. That's becoming less of a certainty these days, but as a term, it's a weapon of math destruction. Math destruction,
Yeah.
people really believe in these things, and maybe they're right 90% of the time, but that other 10% can be really important. And so I think you just kind of have to be really skeptical, and try and use it, see if it works. If it doesn't, then drop it. Most of them have pretty cheap subscriptions, $20, or most of them are free. So I would really just kind of hunt around and always be willing to jump ship. Don't marry yourself to some, AI product, because the likely, hood is they're going to change their model, things are going to get altered. I mean, might not be, what you signed up for in the very beginning.
And what I would
Yeah.
add to that too
Please.
is a lot of these models, or when you go out and you're looking at these different products, you kind of have to like have a goal in mind first. So what you should probably do is look at where you're spending the most time as an organization, right? What activities are you spending your time on? Is it writing emails, right? Is that what your reps are spending all their time on? There's probably some tools out there. What I would recommend for the most part is see if you can start with some general tool like OpenAI. See if you can sign up
Yeah.
and use OpenAI and have that help your kind of process. And if you're seeing some benefit from that, the next thing that I would kind of go look at is see what product you can look at to take that even further. Because again, OpenAI, Claude, Gemini, all these tools are kind of general use,
Yeah.
and you can get a lot more out of them if you just have something in the middle that is like
Points it.
that points it in
Yeah.
the right direction, knows how to get that done. And then also switches, because like I said, yeah, it seems like every week they're dropping a new version, and it's moving very fast.
Yeah, I always compare AI to like electricity. It's just all this power. It's just how you guide it and funnel it of how potent it can be. Cause like it's
Yeah.
like for example, you send on the earth and there's electricity all the time, but you can't feel it because it's just dispersed evenly. When you focus it and get it pointed, that's when electricity becomes powerful. It's the same thing with AI when you prompt it.
Yeah.
The better you prompt and more focused it is, the more better the output is, and people get frustrated because like, I'm not getting good output. I'm like, because your input sucks,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you got to direct it. So I'd love to talk about like with the GTM AI podcast and academy, I like to focus a lot on, I don't want to just learn tools. I want to learn business impact. So take a tool like yours where yes, it's all these cool, amazing AI stuff. And I'm not trying to minimize that. Let's take it a step
Yeah.
further and say, what have been the business impact results that you have seen with customers as a result of like your tool specifically? Like I don't know if you can share like any KPIs or stories. I'd love to hear anything you have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing is just time save right now for there's actually two different fronts that we're seeing the most benefit. One is time save for the reps, and the other is having real-time data, better real-time data for the sales executives. So on the rep side, I don't think there's a rep in the world that enjoys entering data into the CRM, right? And like it
Yeah.
just that doesn't exist. They want to spend their time selling. And with our AI, they don't have to focus about, keeping track of all those little details that pop up in a conversation. They know that they have an AI partner that's taking care of that for them. And by the way, it's doing a better job than you would. So
Right.
so there's a lot of time saved there, for the normal rep, they could be spending anywhere from like 10% to 25% of their day in the CRM, just getting things done, whether that's looking at stuff or entering stuff into the CRM. And long term, we would like to see that go to zero. We envision a future that's not so distant where reps don't really have to go into the CRM. We keep it updated for them. And, again, that's huge. AI is not quite good enough to like put in front of a customer and have them take over that role. I don't
The
think you'd
sales
wanna
role.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to do that, but it's in a good place where we can get reps that spend all their time selling, not on any of the other stuff. And then, like I said, the other side of the coin is sales leaders need real-time data. That's a big problem with pipelines.
Yeah.
They're responsible for reporting, revenue projections and having an idea of what's going on in the business. And that's a very difficult problem to solve when you have a bunch of reps that don't like, putting data into the CRM. So getting that is a huge impact. It's, we're talking more accurate forecasting, more accurate pipelines. We're talking about getting early signals on deals that are not going the right direction, where you normally would maybe only hear from the rep when things have gone disastrously wrong, right?
Right. I think to your point though, that's something that time saved just with that. It's beyond that, where like as an example, in enablement, a lot of what I talk about with onboarding specifically is just how to use the dang tools.
Yeah,
And a big part of it is a CRM data entry. And my data quality depends on how good someone is at typing and remembering different notes, which they don't always do a good job of doing in the first place
right.
because they're trying to focus on the conversation, which they shouldn't,
Mhm.
you know? So to me, I think it's a gift because then the salespeople can say, I'm really good with talking to people. Let me do what I do well, which is talk to
Right.
people. And then all the other stuff is taken care of for them, I love that. And that's what I saw when I saw the demo. I'm like, this is like when I was selling, I'm like, give me this dang tool. I wish I would have had it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's awesome.
You don't hire a rep to take notes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's-
Like you said, it's not just it's the brain matter that it takes up to understand how you actually do that stuff. And it's all the time it takes. Like there's so many things with it. And then the impact of it is forecasting and understanding, the red flags and that kind of stuff, which is pretty powerful. Let me ask one more question. This is going to be for you, Hunter. So on, I've asked this to a couple of AI founders. I'm asking it to you specifically because you have this background in AI. And you mentioned it before, which is trust. How do people trust the AI? Like, how do you know, like, that it's actually being accurate enough to put data into Salesforce or to HubSpot, wherever it is? And how can
Mhm.
I count on that being accurate? Because right now, I think people are still building trust with AI in general,
Yeah.
making sure it's going to be accurate. So, what would you say is like, how do people know they can trust it? And then what should they be looking for to make sure it's, accurate in these kind of systems?
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult. You'll see stuff on like HubSpot even I think has their new, chatbot that's been added to look at your CRM and they even have a label that says, or at least used to have one that says, you can't trust this thing completely, right? Make sure to
Yeah.
verify.
Right.
So trust but verify, I think is a big thing, right?
Old
So when
KGB
you're first
adage.
Yeah.
when you're first using a tool, I mean, you have to treat it like a person, right? It can be wrong. It's a probabilistic model. And maybe it's not completely wrong, but there might be something, kind of off with the inputs. Or the output. So I definitely would say that it's better, at least at this early stage of AI and as it's being integrated into your organization, constantly verify it, at the very beginning. And over time, I think you won't have to do that as much. Over the next, 5 years, it'll probably be that it's wrong, maybe, every 10,000 times it's wrong like once. So I think we're just not at a stage enough where you can really truly trust these things. Unfortunately.
And I
No,
think
it's Go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead.
I think sales leaders too need to, they need to keep that trust but verify in mind. And when they're looking at products, they should be looking at products that make it very easy to verify. And that's something that Hunter's done really well. It's like, okay, we're telling you this thing, and here's why we're telling this thing. We might be wrong. Go look at it.
Yeah. I think that's something that, like, for example, that's why people tripped up with ChatGPT, because it doesn't tell you when it might be wrong. It just says it
Right.
like it's convincing, It's like that
Right.
story of that lawyer who researched cases to help him with his case, and none of them were real. And he went to court with it and, like, got in major trouble. So definitely, I agree with you trusting it. However, I'd also say comparing it to the human counterparts of what they do, like
Yeah.
humans are only 40, 50% accurate. AI is going to be 80 to 90% accurate. So it's not 100%, but neither are humans. So
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good point. The other big thing too is, like I said, we've integrated into our application here that, it quotes, it references, it adds references. Here's why I'm saying
That's
this,
cool.
the times this thing is occurring at, or here's why, right? Really explaining itself using some sort of, chain of thought, right? On this is how I'm getting to this answer, so that you can confirm, more easily that it's actually telling you something that's correct. If it seems suspect to you, right? If something seems off, right? We want you to be able to go investigate that and make it as easy to do as possible.
I love that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that other tools out there don't have that. So you having that, I think, is a differentiator by itself, so that's awesome.
Yeah, we try and be
well-
as transparent as possible across the board with everything.
Yeah.
Transparency is really key with this stuff because it's such a black box to everyone.
Yeah,
try to
such
grow
a new
it.
thing.
Mhm.
Well, boys, I've loved the Kipsy boys. I've loved having you on.
Boys.
Again, Kipsy.com. And I've loved having you guys. And when this drops, I will have the demo you did with me in the AI demos tool library that I'll have. So if you have not seen it, go in there and watch the library, and I'll have your website up there so you can go reach out to them on there if you want to see more, because you guys have been nothing but polite and kind and good to me. And I just really appreciate working with me. So I just want to say thank you for coming on.
And thanks for the invite, Jonathan. It's been a great conversation with you as well.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI Podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.